December the 30th, 2025. Guys, just a couple more days in this year. We into 2026. A lot of people talking about events that will go down then. One of the things I'm hoping for is we start to see some of the people at the top pay for their crimes, and that will take a lot of the snakeheads off before the next elections coming up. Not the midterms, but that would help. But again, what would it be, the 2028 elections? And that needs to start happening because we can't go back to the Biden era. We were on the verge of destruction. We still have not fully climbed out of that hole. And we've got several members, international members, players that love war, that are really pushing things right now past the point that needs to happen. But what you're looking at is a map, and this is called the interactive map of Russia and the Ukrainian war. And it's put together by several different groups, including the USGS and their map services. But from Europe, Garmin, NOAA, all of the Institute of the Study of War and American Enterprises, and the Critical Threats Project. Anyway, you can zoom in or out, and just remind me, I will link it in the comments below, and you can zoom up or down. Now, one thing about this was updated yesterday at 6 p.m. What you're looking at in the red is assessed Russian gains in the past 24 hours. This area has been red for a pretty good period of time. Now they have Donetsk. They was surrounded in certain areas. And again, this was done at 6 p.m. last night. So you can see reported Ukrainian territorial gains in the past 24 hours in purple. There basically are none, unless small sections that Russia just passed around or passed through and maybe someone's back. But that's not happening. And we just saw Zelensky down in Florida with Trump, and he was pushing for 50 years of security. Now, how can anybody in the U.S. promise that? You know, you may get it through the U.K., I don't know, but every 4 years things change pretty quickly here. But again, he was reaching very high, hoping to get the very low things, I think. But he's a puppet. We know that, probably from the Obama nights. But what had happened that's not being reported yet is that in Moscow, and it was very reminiscent of the way that Iran was attacked and a few other people plan attacks, and the fact that it was a phone call setup, and it was a setup for Vladimir Putin in Moscow. 91 drones came in there. Let me back this up. 91 drones came in, and Moscow's saying they intercepted them right there. You see that? They say they intercepted every one of them, and they were all headed basically to Putin's house. Now, who would know that there was a big phone call going on at that time? Who would know? There's several intelligence agencies involved. We know that Europe is up in arms against Russia. But that's what happens when nations collapse. And they're collapsed. They're failed nations. Sorry, guys, that's how it is. They're failed nations. And what they do, the first thing to try to change things is go straight to war every time. Look in history. Anyway, Moscow is lit up on another map, and I'll show you a quick screenshot of it right now. But again, 91 missiles were called in. Now, there was phone calls from two of the top people in Moscow and to Trump, and Trump made a statement about this. We'll talk about it. Now, this is from the military summary on YouTube, guys. He's updated his map. He usually does one a day just about, and he seems to have very good contacts and information sources within this conflict zone. Again, this is the bottom. This is Ukraine. You can see the advancements. But and this is now lit up because of 91 attempted drone strikes. And there's messages coming out. I don't know about any casualties. As far as I know, everything was taken out. Putin's home. I haven't heard if it was hit yet, excuse me, but I do know that he's okay from the reports, and that they're preparing a major retaliatory strike. So somebody does not want the peace agreement to go through. Now, Ukraine doesn't have the satellite technology, guys, to really control a situation like this. They have to have some. We know that Europe's behind them. We know that the U.S. supplies supposedly United or NATO with weapons, and then Ukraine buys them from NATO. Either way, a lot of nations are involved, and we're right on the edge of a peace treaty. Now, Europe really can't afford it back over here on the green side. There's some friendly nations, of course, but they can't afford what they've got now. They're overrun. They allow the politicians to come in, take their any means of protection, allowed the country to be overrun. Politicians kept creeping in and overtook everything. And so they have nothing left but war. But when you're dealing with the overtake of Europe, just like you see in Minnesota, now we're finding out California is just as bad, and Washington State is real bad with the Somali fraud thing. Well, like I said, we're just now on the ice, or the tip of the iceberg, on finding out about the Somali fraud. It was going on in just about every major Democratic area for a long time, up to 10 years. And we're being taxed to death. Anyway, they believe in coming in and taking over the country. Their attitude is, if we don't like it, we should leave. That's a little YouTube short that's been put out by some of the people there. Now, they're arresting a lot of people that actually were running the locations, that were running the fraud at the locations. I think 85 or something like that have been indicted, and some have been sentenced, but none of the big fish, and until it, like Tim Waltz, Omar. And then you got to look at the other cities in the other states. Until they're gone, nothing's going to happen. You cannot, without cutting off the head of the snake, in this situation, kill it. So that's Europe, you're in trouble. And my point about bringing in the Somali thing is that they don't like Ukraine and they don't like Russia because they're white. They're not Muslim, and they're white. So they think their goal is to overtake the world and to force their religion on everybody and their way of life. And it's a pretty substandard way of life, by the way. Anyway, what we got now is, this is the first time this has happened. And it's an attempt by either a nation or a group of nations to assassinate a sitting president. Now, I don't know if Zelensky down here has made it back into Kiev yet. All of that was probably time. It was some type of major phone call, from my understanding, going on, and that's the way you trap somebody. Israel's done it. I'm sure the U.S. has done it. All the major players have used that technique. Set up an event to where you're locating the person. Geolocation, easy with phone calls. Anyway, that's what we're looking at, and just as we see people cry peace, sudden destruction comes in. And why is that? It's because of the greed and hatred of a certain group of people that may not even be fully human, the way they act. And they've infiltrated every political realm on the planet for a long time. Ours could go either way. We've got way too many rhinos in the Republican side right now in D.C. And they're off for another week. I mean, this year, they've taken a lot of time off, but they don't come back till January 6th, and they've been off for 2 weeks already. But one thing about them being off is they're not spending, or not voting to spend any more new money, and we're in so much debt that, again, we were at a crisis situation unless the voting was exposed through Doge and other things, that this country would have been down with 4 more years of Democrats running it. It would have been overrun just like they want Europe. In other words, you have a beehive mentality worldwide that's spreading like cancer. And there's a few good places. Now, the best thing for Ukraine to do would just get rid of Zelensky and that bunch and say, Russia, come on in. We're basically Russian anyway. The language is spoken there in many places. They would be and they wouldn't be ruled by an idiot like Zelensky. But that would, again, remember this, Zelensky is a puppet put there by a certain group. We know a few of them from here that had a lot of dealings going on in Ukraine. So it's not him per se, it's the puppet masters, and they want war big time. Again, like I said, they are anticipating a very strong retaliatory attack, and I don't know where Zelensky is at the moment. It would not be wise for him to be back in his command center in Kiev. He probably doesn't stay there very often anyway. He knows it's pretty dangerous, but we're watching it, guys. You watch it. It's a heads up. Be safe.
Basically, we can say
now, Trump replied to this. He said Putin told him about it, and this morning said he was under attack. This is bad. This is very bad. Remember, I stopped the Tomahawks. It's one thing to conduct offensive operations and quite another to attack his house. Now is not the time to do something like that. He's trying to get peace going on. Now, when he says bad, he knows why it's bad, because Putin is about to probably shut down Kiev. They've already been hit many times. Power's been taken down. I doubt it's fully restored because it's happened so many times in so many places. But they're not going to get away with it, and that is why Trump is saying this. Now, by him, and we knew what his response would be, he knows that people do not want his plans and his initiatives to go forward. They hate the Trump White House. It stands in the way of the global domination and destruction. And so that's what we're dealing with, guys. Russia's, again, they're preparing for some type of strike. It probably will be a game-changing strike. We'll have to wait and see, because they've done a lot of damage already. The map really doesn't indicate where they have hit targets over the last few years, just the occupied territory. But there's been strikes across Ukraine and many into Russia too. We've seen their ships get taken out, or carrying oil. We've seen their power plants get hit, bridges get hit a few times, things like that, and millions of people lost. And Trump has said many times that's what he wants to do, is stop the killing. Makes perfect sense to me. But the warmongers care not. Blood is a sacrifice to them. And that's how, if a nation sees, say, someone in Europe, and there's a lot of Europeans that are very tired of being overrun by both the immigrants and the politicians at the same time, that Europe knows that age group will rise and they will change it, or attempt to. So what do? They send that group, all the nations do it, that could stand against them, into a war to be annihilated. Problem solved. It's sad and it's demonic, and that's why prayer is very key in the situation like this. But how will this escalate? Will it go beyond the Ukrainian borders? Will the attack be so massive, and whatever nation is behind it? Again, I don't know if Z-Man's back in place. I don't know if Bibi's still here or not. But if the right U.S. intelligence finds out who actually set up this situation, this attack in Moscow, then that country could very well be struck also. Now, that's why Putin would have called Trump. He would know by Trump's voice, was he behind it. But I think they already have an agreement really behind the scenes. Trump wants peace, but he knows he can't stop Russia. He doesn't want to start World War III, and he knows that it's going to end at the European border. But he's trying. But Bibi checked in on, I mean, not Bibi, but Putin called him probably the first one. And I bet you, Russia's very good at what they do. They're going to find out exactly who planned this, and UK, you're already in a bad situation. France. So, and it's not the people's fault. They're basically helpless because they've been overrun. We're watching it, guys. You watch it. It's a heads up. Be safe.